Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and it's Women's History Month, and I'm here today to talk to you about Wicked, the 2024 movie. Yeah, I know, I'm late to the party and everything. That's only because when the movie first came out, I just really didn't care to watch it. And then, like, after that, I just completely forgot. So I didn't even bother to look it up on streaming. Then, when I was on Amazon Prime one day, it popped up. I'm like, oh yeah, Wicked. I haven't seen that yet. So here I am. And yeah, even though this video is being uploaded in 2026, I actually watched it and recorded the audio for this and stuff back in 2025. So I just pre-recorded, um, I pre-uploaded this video from last year. So things might have changed with maybe like the cast or the direction or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, take that like however you will. So this movie was directed by John M. Chow, and this movie is loosely adapted from that of the stage play, which is loosely adapted from that of the novel, which is loosely adapted, or a retelling, I should say, of the original novel and stuff. All these retellings and loosely based and stuff like that, man, I swear. Like, it's crazy. And so this movie was written by that of Winnie Holzman and Danny Fox, or Dan Fox, or Dana Fox. I can't remember which one. And so, like, it's based on a 2003 musical play by Stephen Schwartz, and based on the novel that was written in 1995 by Gregory Maguire, which of course is based on the 1939 novel, and of course, like the movie, written by L. Frank Byrne. And so, yeah, The Wizard of Oz has been around since like literally the beginning of, it feels like the beginning of, like, you know, the last century, which technically it has and stuff. And it's been remade and adapted and reworked so many different ways and times and stuff. I've seen so many different versions. Well, not so many, but I've seen a good couple of versions of The Wizard of Oz. There was the original, like, movie I saw, and then I saw that sci-fi retelling called Tin Man that I reviewed. Go watch those two reviews. Then there was Sam Raimi's The Great and Powerful Oz or something like that. I reviewed that. Go watch that. So those are really the only adaptions that, oh, also the sequel that was kind of like a standalone sequel that's not really so much related to the original movie that came out in the 1980s and stuff. I think it's called like Return to Oz or something like that. Go watch that review. So yeah, it's been adapted so many times. There's been so many movies, stage plays, animations, like you name it. I think Leah Michelle did some kind of animated movie thing for it. And so there's been so many. And Wicked, of course, is one of the latest new adaptations. That's a complete retelling. Basically, they wanted to show how everything came to be, a prequel, but how everything came to be by flipping the script, by making the Wicked Witch of the West actually the good person and everybody else scum. And that's an interesting and fascinating, like, retelling. Oh, also, I saw Once Upon a Time on ABC when they tackled the Wizard of Oz story arc, I believe in the second half of season 3. And that was a cool retelling as well. And so, like, yeah. So I've always been a fan of the Wizard of Oz, but when this movie came out, I just really didn't like feel like wanting to watch it at that time. You know, I was kind of burnt out from like the Wizard of Oz stuff after learning so much tragic stuff about like the original movie. Like, my God, it was tragic. And so, yeah, but I finally watched this movie and it is pretty enjoyable, I have to say. Like, the music alone is my favorite part. The music is breathtaking and they truly sung their hearts out. And, I could listen to the music all day, every day. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is how good it is. Like they deserve their applause for that. And they sung live when recording for the movie, which can be very tricky. And so the movie was a fascinating retelling of like oppression and bigotry and stuff like that. But one thing about this movie is that it doesn't really have no excitement, to tell you the truth. Like, they spend the majority of the time in Shiz University, and that's about it. It's literally just two characters. It's Alpha. No, what's her name? Is it Alpha? Elbana. No, what's her name? I forgot her name. And she's like the main person in the freaking movie. Alphaba. It's about her and Glinda and about how, like, they became rivals, but then they actually became friends in this university and everything. And that's really all the movie deals with. It deals with them two not getting along, then them getting along, then them like being separated and everything. And then there's like the backstory of like, oppression and bigotry and like, prejudice and stuff like that, which I was not really expecting. And that's really all the movie has. Like, there's no big climatic fight scene. The way certain events kind of happen and you just have to go along with it. There are some things that were not explained in the movie that are explained in the play. Because I remember thinking to myself, okay, did I like fall asleep at some point in time? When did they explain why she's green? When did they explain how she has magic? When are they gonna explain all these human characters that turn into like, the characters that we love from the original, like the Tin Man and the Scarecrow? Like, when did they transform and everything? And so I had to look it up online, and it's explained in the play, the musical, but it's not explained in the movie. Hopefully it will be explained in like, the sequel, Wicked Good Time, that comes out this November of 2025. And so if they don't explain it, that's pretty lazy writing in my opinion. And so like, I wish there could have been more explanation. I wish there could have been like some action here and there, something huge that happens. Yes, the movie does deal with bigotry and everything, but it doesn't go far enough. Not what I hate saying her name, Alphaba, and it doesn't go as far with the animals and stuff. It's kind of just like glossed over very quickly because they wanted to show more of the budding relationship between like Cynthia and Ariana's like character and everything. Because apparently the novel is a heck of a lot darker and stuff. And I'm surprised they wasn't willing to go there. It's kind of like they just wanted to have like another Barbie type movie, but with like no real stakes and everything. And so that part is disappointing. So that's why the music, in my opinion, is the best part of this entire movie, because for the most part, they do gloss over a lot of the most important details very, very quickly and stuff. And that's quite a shame. And I wish they would have had some action. I still think the Great and Powerful Oz that Sam Raimi made is a superior prequel. They really explain like a lot of things. They explain why the Wicked Witch turns green. They explain why she appears and disappears with like flames. They explain her vulnerability to like liquid and everything. They explain how the wizard got to Oz and why he might not be such a bad guy, even though he is a bad guy. And just like other little things here and there. And I feel like it was a more put together, well thought out movie, whereas this one just wanted to have like a female buddy, like cop type movie, of just two little pals hanging out and conflicting with each other and stuff. Because that's really all the entire movie really, really, really does and everything. And with some of these characters, the human characters that turn into these legendary characters, I was wondering why they put so much emphasis on them. I just assumed it was brand new characters created for like the play and movie. But no, at some point in time, the lead character who is good is gonna turn bad at some point in the future and put them under a spell and everything. Now, I was very surprised when the movie actually started off with some familiar faces. Dorothy, Toto, Scarecrow, Lion, and the Tin Man. I was surprised. Here they are with like the witch's broom heading to Oz and everything, walking that yellow brick road. I was expecting for that to happen at the very end, like a post-credit like scene or something. But no, this happens very on beginning in the movie. Then you have the people from Munchkinland happy and singing that the Wicked Witch is dead and everything, and burning that little straw statue of her. And I think it was the Wicked Witch of the West, I believe, that they was happy and excited that died. And so somebody brought up to Glinda, like, hey, didn't y'all used to be friends? She's like, yes. And everything, not really wanting people to know that. And so she told the backstory of how everything happens. And so because of that, you gotta remember, this whole movie, play, novel, all that is a retelling. So when you show already that, the person that we know to be evil has already been defeated and everything, like, it kind of just ruins kind of the rest of the movie, because now you know how it's gonna end. They could have done something completely different to where, we don't know about the whole Dorothy situation and everything and this and that, and if the witch was gonna be defeated and stuff. It could have been like Tin Man, the movie. So like knowing that she's defeated, knowing she's gonna be evil and everything, and knowing everything's gonna play out the way how people know it to play out, it just kind of robs you of your excitement, because no matter what in this movie, this person is going to survive, and that person is going to survive, and this person is going to be okay, and this person is going to get crushed by a house. You know what I'm saying? So I really wish they would have like saved that for like the end or the next movie and stuff. Now, I've never seen the play. I've never read the novel. I don't know what the second part is going to be about, so I'm going to take it in as it is, and I don't want to like spoil myself, So I really have no idea how it's really going to play out. I really have no idea how the Wicked Witch of the West is going to turn evil and everything, because here she's misunderstood, and here she is our our protagonist, not our antagonist and stuff. So it's going to be fascinating to see this transition and stuff. Also, it was really fascinating to see Glinda be a spoiled brat and everything. Also, with the Sam Raimi movie, they did a better explanation as to how and why she uses bubbles and everything to travel. And so, like, here, like I said before, they flipped the script. Glinda, or Galinda, as she was first known, is very stuck up, very privileged, very rude, very bratty. And what's interesting is that's kind of how Ariana is in real life. If you ever researched her and stuff, she's not little Ari, as her fan base likes to call her, all sweet and innocent. The girl has some problems and stuff. However, this movie is riddled with tons of controversy and everything. And it's like, And it's quite a shame because, but thankfully it didn't detract from like the movie, but it is something that did hilter the movie and, and kind of weighed it down just a tiny little bit and everything. Now it was cool to see like, Kristen Shanowitz and Denza Menzel. I can't get my words out right now. Adina Menzel. Like it was cool to see them, the ones who originated the play and played like these characters, have like a cameo and a singing part in the movie. And I love hearing both ladies sing, especially Adina. Like she to me is like the new Celine Dion, but not as famous as Celine Dion is. Mostly because she does like plays and movies, and she's never really hit like the radio charts and stuff. Even though she's come out with songs and music videos on YouTube, but she's never reached the height or even close to that of Celine Dion. But I feel she could if she had better management and stuff. And so it was really cool to see these two. And I'm a fan of Adina. I used to be a fan of Kristen. Kristen has some weird shadiness to her. Like, she did an interview one time where she was talking about like there's a saying in the South that you say, bless your heart and something else. And she said that's technically an insult because you disagree with what the person says and you're technically insulting them. But then the biggest thing that came from her was when she felt bad for P. Diddy, aka Sean Combs. Like when he started getting accused by all these people and stuff, she's all like, she's gonna pray for him and she feels sorry for him or something like that. And people was kind of like, you should be sorry for his victims, not him. But she said, oh, but my religion and this and that and forgiveness and that. I hate when people do that. I hate when people use their religion as a scapegoat as to why they forgive like a horrible person. And he is a horrible person and everything. You should not feel sorry for that man. The man is a monster and everything. Now, what's really interesting is that Demi Moore has been trying to get this movie made since the 90s and everything, when she bought out like the screenplay and stuff. But she later lost it to ABC around 2009. And then Selma Hayek was like wanted to play like the lead character. And then like, she had the rights for like a good while with ABC before that was later dropped. And it's just crazy. Since the 90s, they've been trying to get this movie made. And so like, I think around 2011, they was considering like Amy Adams, Leah Michele, and for the role and stuff like that. But of course, as you can tell, they're not in the movie. Now, one of the controversies with this movie is the doll. Mattel has some wicked dolls and they had their website, but they put the wrong website to it. Instead, it led to a sex website, which one little girl or one mother said her little girl was traumatized by like what she saw and all this and that. And I'm just kind of like, maybe. Most kids get excited when they see things like that, but there's a good possibility that yeah, she was traumatized and stuff like that, but I doubt it was that severe. Then there was like, controversy with the poster. With the poster, Cynthia Erivo decided she was gonna pose kind of depressing like for the poster and not have the smirk that's the play poster has or the musical poster has and stuff like that. So fans were disappointed because they wanted to see this recreated but with the new cast. So some people started photoshopping here and there, and one person decided to photoshop it by giving her a smirk, adding the red lips and a couple of other stuff, right? And also shading in her eye area because her eye is supposed to be covered by her head. This pissed off Cynthia Erivo, and I've already talked about this. Go watch that video. She felt like it was like erasing her and this and that. And a lot of people couldn't understand why she making such a big deal about like a poster and everything, right? And this recreation, and why is she talking about being erased? Well, it has to do with her time at Disney when she played the Blue Fairy in Pinocchio. She was ridiculed online heavily because they wanted the Blue Fairy to be white, like in the cartoon, and Cynthia is black. Not only that, but like they allowed Cynthia to have her natural appearance for the movie. Bald head, giant like bull ring nose, big studded earrings in the ear and everything. And she didn't have the traditional look of the Blue Fairy with hair and this and that. And many people was very, very mean to her about like this appearance. And of course they called her racist names and all this and that. And of course they called her racist names for this movie and stuff like that. So because of that debacle and everything, it left a lasting note on her. Like to where she just, it kind of like triggered that bad time of when she was with Disney and everybody was just like making fun of her and everything. So when they did this and covered her eyes, it really hurt her and everything because it triggered what happened with her in Pinocchio. Then there's a slight like, thing about the whole Munchkin land. The Munchkin people in the village, as you can see, or you actually can't see, but they're played by like average sized people and not little people with dwarfism. And normally they are like that of people with dwarfism and stuff. And so people do wonder, why did they make this choice? Was it just something the director wanted to do to have like, people of all sizes? Or was he afraid of offending people with dwarfism? Or some people speculate, was it Peter Dinklage? Because as we all know, Peter Dinklage was very infamous for why the Seven Dwarfs look the way they do in that Disney live action remake. He said, plain and simple, Disney can be progressive on one way by having a Latino princess, but they're not progressive by still having little people working in a cave and living in a house together. So Disney does what Disney does best, and they panicked. And they kept changing everything around to where the dwarves are now made of CGI and they look horrendous. They do look the way they did in the cartoon, but it just looks god awful. And so people got mad at him, especially little people, because they're all like, look, man, you're taking jobs away from us and everything. Like, we're not as privileged as you to get these like leading roles and everything because of your size. And we have to get whatever we can get, whether it's playing elves or dwarves or trolls or stuff like that, And so people do wonder if he had anything to do with that. But there's never been no information on that, which is kind of odd because he said he's worked his life not to be put in those stereotypical roles. Because at first, he had to play like an elf and stuff like that, like in Chronicles of Narnia. And then when he was in Disney's Avenger movie, he played a troll, but instead of playing a little troll, he's like a giant that looked just weird with the CGI. But in this movie, he voices a goat. So it's kind of like he's not offended by that. But he gets offended by other stuff. I just don't get it. And, it does suck that the whole Disney movie, he did take like, jobs away from like little people because like, like a lot of them people said, they're not as privileged as him and everything. Because some of them, they had to have some of the most embarrassing jobs ever, like playing a clown, and other stuff. But a lot of them have strived past those embarrassing roles. Some are models, some are actors and actresses and everything. Some are like Instagram models and everything, and some have become adult stars and stuff. But yeah, it's like people do wonder if he took jobs away from like little people when it came to Wicked, but nobody really knows if he did or not. And then there's the whole controversy of like Ariana Grande and Ethan Slater and how their relationship came about. both were married to like two completely different people. They starred in this movie, and then all of a sudden they broke up with their significant other, and now they're a couple, which many people have speculated they had an affair. And that's all people could talk about leading up to this movie. But that's not really the only other thing they was talking about. It was Ariana Grande's appearance. If you've ever seen Ariana Grande like in television before or music videos or whatever, you've noticed that her appearance is very strikingly different in this movie and stuff. Yes, she has blonde hair, but she appears to have lost a significant amount of weight. Not only that, but with the whole bleaching of the eyebrows, it made her look unusual. But then fans started to speculate there's just something different about her face. Many fans speculate she's had like some sort of plastic surgery, either like fillers or an eyebrow lift or something. And also her lips look different. And so like because of that, people started to like really criticize her really badly. For her to break down and be all like, you know, you shouldn't make fun of me and blah 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 and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, but you did this to yourself. And like, what? Aren't you? Isn't she like in her early, like her mid or late 20s or something? So if she did have like some type of surgical procedure and everything, she had it, like she's 32 now. She's way too young to be doing stuff like that. And that's the sad truth about Hollywood nowadays. Women feel like in order to stay in the business, they have to do whatever it takes to look younger. And I'm seeing more and more female celebrities getting fillers and Botoxes and all kind of stuff. And now the younger ones are doing it. There's one in her early 20s that I know of that literally had like, you know, surgery. And there's like, what is it? There was this one person at 19 has had all this surgery done on her body. And it's just kind of like, you're too young to be doing that. You're not even old yet, which I think Ariana has admitted. I don't know if she's admitted to having it or not, but I could have sworn I read it somewhere a long time ago. And it's just kind of like, you're not that old yet. And when you look at her appearance over the years, this is not due to like aging. Like she has literally changed herself. And it's weird to go back in time to see all her different appearances, because there's the part where she was like on Nickelodeon and that was her most natural look. But then after she started music, she adopted this new look with the long ponytail and this and that. And so like, and then, you know, she got accused of like fish hooking, race hooking and everything, trying to look Hispanic, trying to look Asian, trying to look black. And, you know, and then now she has this new appearance to like her face and everything. So for many people, and including myself, it was distracting watching her in the movie because I couldn't help but to stare at her face and everything. Because not only that, but she put on a fake voice, which is something she does all the time when she acts. You will rarely ever hear her real voice when she's acting, but she rarely acts nowadays. It's mostly she just does singing. When she was on Nickelodeon for those two shows, she had a fake voice. Then in Scream Queens and everything, she actually used her real voice, but she was only in it for a very brief time. When she's on SNL, when she's doing other projects, and especially this one, she's changing her voice. And she couldn't quite keep it up throughout the entire movie. So because of that, her performance was a little off-kiltered and everything. Because, you know, when you change your voice and you don't have time to breathe, and her voice didn't always sound right. Like her comedic cues were off a lot in this movie due to both her changing her voice and her face literally just not moving and stuff. There was no emotion to her face. She always looked like she was just staring out into like the open and everything. Then there's Marissa Brody, who plays Nessa Rose. And so, like, she started getting criticism because she's in a wheelchair in real life. And people's all like, why is she in a wheelchair? And blah, blah, blah. And started making fun of her because of that. And it's like, what is wrong with people? Like, she's in a wheelchair. You shouldn't be making fun of that. Now, technically, her character in the book doesn't have both her arms. So in the movie, they just decided, okay, we're going to make her paraplegic so she won't be able to use her legs and stuff. And I do wonder one thing. Like, I'm all for her acting in this role, but I do have a weird feeling because we all know what happens to the character. Like, she gets crushed under a building, and the fact that this character's in a, this actress is in a wheelchair. I really don't want to have to hear all these people making all these dumb jokes about how she got crushed under a building, but yet the only thing you see stick up is her feet, but she can't move her feet. Like, you know somebody's gonna say that, you know what I'm saying? And it's just one of those things, like, you know it's gonna happen, but I wish to God it didn't. And so, like I said before, you know, this movie deals with that of prejudice. Alphaba, wherever she goes, people are always staring, whispering, pointing, making fun of her and everything because she has green skin. And the actress, like I said before, she had to deal with racism when taking on this role because people didn't want a black wicked witch of the West when the wicked witch of the West literally has green skin, you know what I'm saying? And we've rarely ever seen her have any other color skin other than that Sam Raimi movie. And so, like, it's never explained why exactly she's green, but it is explained that her mother had an affair on her, on their father and everything. And so she is the product of a person who was traveling and selling them stuff. Now, we know who in the original movie was walking around selling people stuff. So, but it doesn't, and that of course is the wizard. Alphaba literally is the product of two different worlds, and that is how she got her magical witch abilities, which is never explained in the movies, but it's explained in the play that because she comes from two completely different like worlds, parallel worlds, that gave her magic. Which doesn't really explain how that gives you magic, but hey, whatever, you know what I'm saying? This is the canon of, like, you know, this universe. So whatever. But her green skin doesn't make sense and is never explained in the movie. But in the movie, we see her have a vial of this green substance and we don't know what it's for, but she's very protective of it. Now in the play, her mother drank this green substance, and that's what gave Alphaba her green skin when she was like in the womb and everything. And so throughout the whole movie, every time somebody sees her, she always has to explain, no, I didn't eat grass. I didn't fall in this, blah, 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 blah. Like, you know, because she gets tired of having to explain to people why she has green skin. And she's always been ridiculed all her entire life, and her stepfather does not like her. She believes it's because that she gave her mom some type of milk from like a flower and it made her mom sleep. But I believe it's because the mom had an affair and the dad knew about it and everything. And so she's always having to live with all this burden and everything like that. And going to Shiz didn't help matters like whatsoever. Because like her stepdad gave her sister some like, you know, silver slippers, which is not red ruby slippers, because that was in the original movie, but it's supposed to be silver like in the book. And so she's always feeling left out and stuff like that. The only people who take an interest in her at Shiz is like, you know, the teachers. Well, some of the teachers. You have that of like Dr. Dillamon, who is a goat and played by Peter Dinklage. And so, like, you know, he understands what it's like to be, like, you know, oppressed and have prejudice towards him because he is an animal and he talks and everything. And apparently there is this, like, whole movement of like hating on animals and talking about they need to be seen and not heard. And somebody writes that on his chalkboard. So this whole thing is glossed over very quickly, and I felt like this should have been the main focal point of the entirety of the movie, and it could have caused both their characters to bond more because Alphaba has a fondness for animals and taking care of them and doesn't like nothing cruel happening to them. Like when she met the cowardly lion who was in the cage. She freed the lion along with this other dude, the prince, because she used her magic and it put everybody like to sleep. But it protected the prince because it's not explained in the movie, but because of her loving desire for like the prince, she was able to protect him, not really realizing that. And so they freed like the lion and this and that. But then the goat dude, got like kicked out of school. And she keeps having these flash forwards of like the goat dude in like a cage and this and that. I hope this is explained a heck of a lot more in like the second movie, because I don't want this glossed over like it was in the first. And then when you find out who is responsible for all this oppression towards animals, it's Madame Morabille and everything, played by Michelle Yeoh, a person who takes an interest in Alphaba and stuff. And she's the only person nice to Alphaba, but there's a reason for that. She has like a hidden agenda along with that of the Wizard of Oz, who is also part of the oppression of animals. So the good people are now like the bad people in this universe. But one of the worst characters ever is Galinda, whose name starts off as Galinda, but later becomes Glinda, who is, of course, the good witch. She is very privileged. She loves the color pink. She is very arrogant. She is very rude. She is very selfish. A far cry from what we know from all the other stories of her and stuff like that. And so her magic is not very good. And she's given a wand, but can't quite use it and everything. And so right from the start, when she sees Alphaba, she just does not like her and her green skin. And her friends end up making fun of her. Now, her friends are played by Bowen Yang and that Browyn James. And I know Bowen from like SNL, and I know Bronwyn from that of Harlots and stuff. They have tiny roles, and the characters aren't really like that well developed and everything. But they constantly just make fun of her like every time they can get. And of course, they're roommates, so it makes things worse. And it's to the point where she only gives her a small corner of the room and she takes up the rest because she is very, very selfish. Which in an odd way, Ariana was kind of playing a fictional version of herself. Like I said before, if you ever know anything about Ariana Grande, she's not Little Miss Innocent. That whole donut licking thing and saying she hates America, that was a big controversy for her to lick the donut and put it back so somebody can eat it and get her germs when she was with her friends just snickering and everything, but the owner saw that and threw it away. Then there's the whole she wants to be carried like Mariah Carey everywhere. And they kind of did a nod to that where her character had to be carried at one point. And, and it's just like other little things that fans have found annoying about her in real life because she is a diva. But none is worse than her brother Frankie, which shows they had a very different upbringing for both of them that act like, as snobbish as they do. People don't like Frankie because when he was on Big Brother, he was just a horrible person. Like, he was rude, he was arrogant, he talked behind people's back. And not only that, but there was this one time where he was cuddling with this one woman. Now, he doesn't like her because he's openly gay. But he was cuddling with this one woman. I remember she was like this, I forget her name, but she was this one black house guest. And they was cuddling along with everybody else outside. And in the moment she got up and left and went around the corner, he says, "I hate her and I wish she would die." And it's kind of like, whoa, to wish death upon somebody is taking it a little too far. And just a couple of seconds ago, you was cuddling with her. So what the heck brought this on? So many people find him to be fake and arrogant and rude, and he lives in her shadow, and I personally can't stand him. But then another thing that's kind of quickly glossed over very quickly is the way they became friends. Because mostly it's a one-sided feud. It's mostly just Galinda being extremely rude to her and her just kind of like whatever, like very passive and everything. I've dealt with that before. See, Alphaba, it does hurt her the way people talk about her, but she pretends like it doesn't. And she tries to put on a brave face, but you know, it's getting harder and harder. And so at one point, Alphaba told Madame Morrible to, I think induct Galinda into like a course for like magic and stuff like that, because she wanted Alphaba to be in it, because the madam lied when Alphaba used her powers by mistake, because her powers are triggered by emotion. And so the madam just took the blame for it. And so when she did this and Galinda got to be in the course, all of a sudden now she's super nice to her and want to be her friend. And she gives her a makeover. And she takes her glasses off, gives her some more fancier clothes and this and that. And it's just kind of like, I did not like that whole makeover scene, because it's her trying to be nice, but her also trying to control the situation. Very similar like Cher from Clueless and everything, because she feels like Alphaba is imperfect. So she's going to make her perfect in her image and everything. And I hate that whole colonization, assimilation type thing. So now they're the best of buds, and it just kind of happens a little too quickly and everything. Way too quickly. And there is the prince from Winky country and everything, Faleo. And so he's human. And he has a crush on Alphaba, and Alphaba has one on him. But Galinda has one on him, and Galinda feels like I get what I want no matter what. And she's very forceful towards him. And you can see the bond between him and Alphaba, but you can't really see between him and Galinda. This, of course, is going to cause some friction between them in the future. And ironically, the prince is actually... wait, who is he? Is he the Tin Man or is he the Scarecrow? He's the Scarecrow and everything. And I think the Scarecrow, what did he want? Brains. Which, this character kind of already has brains. I mean, he helped free like the Cowardly Lion as a cub and everything, you know? But yeah, at some point in time, it is assumed that Alphaba is going to curse him and everything if they stay on that path of the original like novel from back in the day. Now there's a munchkin who's in love with Galinda called Bog, and he's played by Ethan Slater, but she doesn't want him and puts him on to that Nessa Rose. And so Bog ends up being the Tin Man, and because all he wants is a heart. Don't know what's going to happen, but he's going to get cursed in the future as well. And so when Alphaba is sent to that of the wizard and everything, Galinda, who's now called Glinda, goes with her. And there's this special book. And the book is called the Grimoire or something like that. And so it's this special spell book that only a person with significant power can use. And so this is what the wizard and that of like the madam was banking on, that Alphaba is the chosen one who can like read from this book. And when she does, she ends up giving monkeys wings, which puts them in extreme pain. Like, it's torturous to see that scene. And of course, Alphaba does not like that. But the madam tells her once you read from the book and use a spell, it is now permanent and everything. So this is how she gets her flying monkeys. After Alphaba like realized that the wizard, you know, doesn't have no powers and he's the one responsible for the animal oppression, her and Glinda, they steal the book, they take off running, they're chased by like the guards, and it's this big dramatic scene in a big musical, Defying Gravity, and it's really huge. But Alphaba tells Glinda, you know, come with me so we can escape. But Glinda doesn't do it. Like Glinda just pauses for the longest time, and Alphaba realizes that nothing's changed between those two. That Glinda rather like learn magic from like the madam and everything than be her friend and be with her and stuff. So she takes off without her and everything. And it's this big song, and it was just so breathtaking seeing her fly up in the air and all this other stuff. But it's kind of like she could have grabbed her and took her along with her. And when they first tried to escape, Glinda got captured, and Alphaba just went off, and she could have went and saved her, but didn't. But then when she asked her and everything, she didn't want to go. So she feels betrayed by her newfound friend, who she's only been friends with for a short period of time. So I really do wish they didn't gloss over that and stuff. And of course, it goes into like part two, and part two does not come out until November. So I do feel like that this is a very enjoyable movie. It could have been a heck of a lot better because there's so much that it glossed over that it didn't want to explain, and things they should have explained, which I'm starting to now see a pattern with a lot of movies coming out in 2025 where they don't fully explain things that they need to explain, and it really sucks. And so like I think the music numbers were like awesome. The acting was good. Well, except for one person and everything. Like, I'm sorry, Ariana just needed to, her face needed to move, man. Cynthia did a really good job in this movie. Also there was controversy about Cynthia's age because, you know, both the characters are supposed to be around the same age, but in this movie, all the students at Shiz, they're a lot older than you think. I mean, sometimes you can't even really tell, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I can't wait to see the second part because I'm very curious to know what exactly they're gonna do. Happy Women's History Month, everybody. All right, well, I'll talk to you later. Bye.